Thoughts of reflections. My thoughts are the magnets that connect the unspoken enigma between having what I desire to desiring what I already have. Because my thoughts are the magnets that connect this unseen with the seen, I think wisely. As I think wisely, I bring to my awareness the treasures I've always possessed within me. Each thought animates the abundance of those treasures into existence. The more time I spend in lower mind thinking, the less and less I am able to quote-unquote see, visualize, or imagine my dreams into existence. May I immediately be awakened to this, so that I can recalibrate my mind back into alignment with all that is pure, lovely, kind, and what is in harmony with my dreams. Because I am the author, professor, and wordsmith of my own life, my sovereignty, state of awareness, or quality of consciousness is not contingent upon, governed by, or attached to any astrological transits or predictions, fortune-telling, personal tarot card readings, or any other type of esoteric knowledge and wisdom, because these are just tools, reference points, guides, representations, or a confirmation of the obvious, my inner knowing. The more I actively embrace higher mind thinking, the more I am able to manifest my desires into the physical reality. The higher I rise above within what I see in my reality, the more my visualizations and desires are brought to life without. As I ascend to a higher way of thinking, I rise from within above my current circumstances. So, going back to an older mindset or shrinking back into the opposite direction is no longer an option. It is through divine awareness, revealing all distorted conditionings imposed upon my consciousness, where I can realize why I experience the things I do not like. This timeless revelation points out, isolates, zeroes in on, or magnifies these conditionings as if projecting them onto a movie screen for me to see. In this way, I become more aware through my mind's eye how these things play out in the quality of my relationships and in the way that I relate to the external world, its limitations, restrictions, distorted beliefs and values, and how either a collective or self-imposed suffering is, indeed, the obvious result of such conditioning. The beautiful benefit of this quote-unquote mind-blowing revelation is that it keeps me receptive to that flow state of intervention available to and assisting me at all times as the deeper layers of my consciousness internally within balance out to bring healing and harmony into the collective consciousness projected externally without. For this reason, a non-judgmental heart of compassion is crucial to learning more from one another as a humanity. Because the ego edges God out and the personality persists in quote-unquote seeing only quote-unquote enemies or through the lens of fear, competition, worry, or guilt. As I ascend higher and higher within, I solidify and objectify things to appear without. As I transform a negative emotion from within, I no longer have the propensity to unconsciously emit or transmit it as a negative vibration without. I transform pain. I do not transmit pain. Spirit's medicine is in constant supply for me. I treasure it, revere it, and cherish it as my only source of healing or renewal. After I've passed through the mazes of lower mindsets, all the walls behind me collapse and shut down. There is no other choice but to move forward, because going backwards would be an inescapable, tormenting dead-end street. Accordingly, as I close the door to all charades, I no longer need confirmation from an outer reality what I already know to be true in my inner reality. I ignore the quote-unquote evidence of any physical appearances that try to contradict my belief in what has already manifested. and I do not need to discuss with others whether my belief is valid or not. Denial to my senses is the evidence of the things not yet seen. I no longer need to rebel or resist against anything or anyone because I only fight against my own power that I chose to transfer onto a person or a thing, not the person or thing itself. It is me seeking to reunite back with myself through the depolarization of negative or positive ideas previously conditioned by external influences. Anything that appears as an opposition is just mirroring back to me the way it has been perceived to be by external influences. It is useless to project an illusory expectation that I must be someone I am not, because I believe that I can be me, who I already am, without the pressures or deception of fulfilling an erroneous way of thinking or a false sense of security. As I become more of what I think, I take my attention away from anything that does not align with who I am. Acknowledging and accepting the ebbs and flows, or the ups and downs of life via the processes of contraction and expansion, is the first step towards learning more about myself. And as I recognize my divinity, or true essence of God within me, operating through all spaces and dimensions, the more graceful my realization of Spirit's essence in me, around me, and through me becomes. This realization elevates my awareness into an effortless sense of alchemical buoyancy. I can only forgive something when I truly forget it. If I am reminded of what I held against someone, then I have not forgiven at all. Complete forgetfulness is complete forgiveness. If I have not forgotten, then I have not forgiven. Because as I continue to remember what happened in the past, I replay an image pattern in my mind that continues to recreate reflections of people, places, and things around me based on an old past occurrence that no longer exists. So, patiently and gently, I do the inner work to forgive and forget. As I forgive and forget, it is mirrored back to me 100-fold. So rather than believing the saying, out of sight, out of mind, instead I believe, out of mind, out of sight. Only a gentle soul is strong enough to love unconditionally. I love myself gently, freely, and unconditionally. I have only one gift that is truly mine to give. It is the gift of myself. As a sketch artist brings what has been visualized to life through the act of sketching, I quote-unquote sketch my own life's masterpiece. As a good thought becomes a good sought, I align myself with this wonderful enigma. When I make a wish for someone, it automatically presupposes that I accept and believe the same wish to be returned back to me. It is my own faith, calling the thing that I do not yet see, that brings the wish to fruition. Otherwise, it is powerless and it will not manifest. For this reason, I only wish something for someone that which I would want to be wished for myself. Because any wish I make for someone can and will be rejected by the receiver if he or she is incapable of believing or accepting the same to be fulfilled for themselves or for me. So, I only think good thoughts and make good wishes for myself and for others. I recognize there is no barrier to the manifestation of my desire. There is no block to destroy if my desire has already manifested. I will not want what or who doesn't want me, because when I want something or someone that doesn't want me, it creates an undesirable sequence of events on both ends. If what I want wants me too, then the more attention I give to an unpleasant situation, the more it will want me back by creating an undesirable life for me that I never wanted in the first place. It is in the spirit which I accept, or the belief placed upon resources, tools, medicines, supplements, prayers, affirmations, relics, crystals, or spiritual practices, why and where the remedy happens, and not only in or because there is a quote unquote spiritual power within the objects or practices themselves. I save myself from who I do not want to be or who I was by personifying or becoming who I do not want to be or who I already am. This act in itself releases the thief, a lower preconditioned or programmed mindset trapped or locked in a shell that stifles me from being who I am. Nothing needs to be created in the unseen world. It already is. As I continue to appropriate this new way of being, all things work together for good for the betterment of myself and for all humanity. As part of the same whole, or humanity, I am a unique being within, individually expressing a different set of codes without. As I am who I am meant to be in different forms, levels, and dimensions, especially through the ebbs and flows of life's experiences, I go higher and higher, contracting, expanding, forming, transmuting or transforming, projecting, and changing everything within, until it all meets at 0 point, the pure center, where all begins and ends, and begins again. It is my higher self that influences all the actions and words necessary to aid in the production of my manifestation. As I proceed to live a life of alchemy, it may feel uncomfortable at first. The deprogramming of years and years of operating in a way that is different from what I am used to can feel a bit jarring and shocking to my soul. For this reason, it is super important for me to be kind to, patient, and gentle with myself. Once awakened to the heart or truth of a matter, all irrefutable depolarized previous impressions or sensations associated with it are irreversible. Therefore, relapsing into any lingering emotional or mental attachments is just an illusion, projecting either a sense of lack or the quote-unquote need to resort back to old behaviors or habits. For this reason, I am no longer able to integrate with collective influences, negative currents or streams of thought that are driven by previous impressions or sensations. True wisdom and freedom detaches from the need to blame one collective influence over another for the cause and effect of a particular crisis. Instead, it looks inward to make the humbling and difficult choice to change any thought patterns leading into the obvious negative pattern being judged or projected. It is the lack of understanding or self-awareness as to why I feel the way I feel about a particular person, place, or thing that leads to a false projection of opposition externally without. When in fact, it is an internal perception or a dominating collective belief of a person, place, or thing projecting the quote-unquote need for it to be opposed that is causing a ripple of negative impressions or suggestions later solidified into quote-unquote sins or dense sensations. So, a detached viewpoint or non-reaction to a particular impression or suggestion helps to not recreate or release reoccurring negative thought patterns or sensations into our collective consciousness. Self-observation of my thoughts without judgment is a healthy step towards quintessential freedom for myself and for humanity. Who I am is not contingent upon other people's thoughts or behavior. When I identify with the feeling of who I desire to be, the entire course of what's around me is molded into and harmonized with the fulfillment of that desire. As my desire awakens, I nurture it by feeding it quote-unquote belief buns, so that it does not starve to death. I like being devoted and attentive to my belief. The more I nurture my desire, the more it grows into a fruitful harvest. First, I keep this harvest to myself, because in order for me to share this harvest with the world, I must first care for and share this harvest with myself. When I am gentle and patient with myself in my healing process, others mirror those attributes back to me 100-fold. To the pure, all things are pure. And because to the pure all things are pure, I am incapable of seeing the quote-unquote unlovely because I only identify with what's lovely. It is not my responsibility to change a man. There is no other way to change my world except I first change myself. First, I must change myself, and by doing so, perhaps it will inspire others to do the same. There is nothing unclean of itself, for it is I that sees another human as either clean or unclean. To the measure of my own belief and faith, the awareness of my I amness recalibrates to and in harmony with my quintessence. The ideal concept of my godliness or I amness is adhered to serve as or obtained from my inner nature. Were it not already potentially involved, originated from my inner nature, then I would not have an inner knowing of who I already am. I would have never sought me had I not already found me. That is, because I already am. I fashion the world around me by the intensity of my own belief and feelings towards myself. I can choose to either illuminate or darken the world around me by the concept I hold of it. As soon as I succeed in transforming myself via the concept I have of myself as a human, the world, and all distorted projections or preconditions, quote-unquote, magically melts before my eyes and reshapes itself in harmony with what my inner self affirms. I align myself with this infallible truth. As easy as it is to manifest what I do not want or what I do not like, which is a byproduct of operating within the range or the appearances of toil and struggle, then it is just as easy to manifest what I do like, which is a byproduct of operating within the range or the belief of peace and trust. That is why I consider it no mockery to believe that what has been affirmed in the unseen already exists, waiting to be seen. As I rise to the level of my noble desire or idea, I find the world in harmony with this assumption. I do not make it so. It is so. As a spiritual being, having an earthly experience, I have always been who I am before the world was. The only thing that has changed is the concept I have of myself as a human, whereas I saw broken parts which were never really broken at all. I entertain the idea of excellence and appropriate this state that has already been mine before the world was. Without the validation of another, I remain faithful to the feeling and belief that I am who I am meant to be. As my belief grows more and more, it hardens into fact, into reality, the fulfillment of my desire. As my desire awakens in others, the ideas and actions that tend towards the embodiment of my dream or vision, it solidifies my faith even more. All it takes is one dream to come true to establish the conveyance necessary and or the propensity for things and others to continue showing up in ways that make more of my dreams come true. I do not consider that what I desire is nearby, because even this expectation implicates a sense of separation. It is already here. Anything perceived as limiting, restricting, destructive, or opposing can be redefined as freeing, liberating, restorative, and in alignment with pure consciousness. Any conditions I define are guidelines I choose to mentally, emotionally, or physically operate by. If I can imagine being a certain way that I desire to be, or have a certain thing that I desire to have, the fact that I can imagine it or desire it verifies from my higher self to my human self that I am worthy. I just need to be reminded of or be reawakened to it. I assume that I already am who I want to be, I do not look back on my former way of being or wonder how this way of being or living will disappear and be no more. For if I continue to look back and give attention to it, I am feeding into that old vacated idea, giving it more power to grow more and more. I no longer say to myself, am I really different? Am I really that which I've imagined myself to be? Have I really detached myself from the people, places, and things that are no longer from or a part of that which I've envisioned for myself? Is this or that really true or not true? No. Instead, I devote and determine myself to give all of my attention to the assumption that that which I have imagined or envisioned in my mind's eye is already so. Hence, because it is so, I do not have to make it so. It is so. To be the spiritual mind is to be spirit. To be spirit is to be I am. And I am just is. I am that I am.